Welcome back to Oneself. My name is Stephen Maher. With me today, with me always, is Adam Bartiman. Liking this shirt, dude. Like I said before we hopped on, that's a nice screen. Looks comfortable. Really
Sure.
liking that shirt, man. Um, and what I want to talk about today, folks, is fear, right? Um, I feel like I've lived a lot of my life in fear, not that I'm like terrified or horrified, or it's like, I'm scared, but just like this subtle fear like underneath the surface of my life, right? And I think that comes, like a lot of this stuff from probably childhood, like not feeling safe. And, not that that's necessarily, people say that's not your fault, but it is your responsibility, right? As an adult to kind of, address that stuff and address any internal stuff going on with inside of you and fix it to be the best version of yourself, to become the highest potential you can possibly be. And I think when I was younger, it's like, I probably was afraid of being myself because it's like, how would people receive that? Or, would I be judged? Or, yeah, would I not be safe? And I've spent the last couple of years like really trying to rework that. And I've noticed, these patterns, like as you peel back the layers to yourself, it's like I've noticed like the fear keeps coming back up, right? And so an intention now that I'm really trying to live with and hold is just like be fearless, man. Like just live without fear. I was telling Adam before we hopped on, like when it comes to music, right? It's like, oh man, like with my younger 20s, I was like petrified of like what people might think of me, and so I hid behind other talented people, right? Like it's like I wasn't the main focus of the project or whatever, but it's like when the spotlight was on someone else, it's like I felt so much more comfortable as like not the front man or not the lead or the singer of the project, but like when I was kind of thrust into that singing, front man position, it was like it took me some time to get comfortable for sure because I was afraid that people would think or boot off stage or whatever, like all the terrible things that your anxiety goes to. And what have I learned from that? It's like when I'm on stage and fearless, oh my God, like it's like I get such lot more of a response from an audience because it's like they feel that shit. They feel that like I just don't care. you know, like I'm gonna go have fun with me and my friends. And like you can like ride with that or like be a fan or whatever, or just move on with the rest of your night. And so the point of that is just being, it's like when I really try to instill or embody, like we talk about being, right? Just be it. When I really try to just be, live without fear, good things happen in my life, and we've talked about in the past where, I put myself in a prison, right? When it comes to fear. And you put yourself in these mental prisons, these bars that you don't even really know exist until you kind of acknowledge them, right? And it's just like I was holding myself back from doing cool stuff or being myself because of fear, right? And what's the antidote to that is love. Like we talk about love a lot of the times. So it's like when I try to soothe those feelings, or those anxieties, it's like with love, it's like that's the antidote I found in my mind of just like, just showing up for myself and just really trying to be who I think I'm supposed to be, following that path. And yeah, Adam, that's my little opening spiel on fear. I'd love to dive into this, and any opening thoughts on this topic, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's the main experience here of our experience of separation, living in this illusion of being separate from one another and believing in the finite nature of our existence, which is only the illusory aspect of it. It comes with fear. Most people, it comes down to like a fear of death, a fear of the finite nature, as I said. And because what's at the root of all of those things, right? Like, what's at the root of what I'll just put it back to you, like, what is at the root of the fear of, performing? Like, what was it? I know you've mostly gotten over it, but what was it back then? Like, just
Acceptance,
follow the
right?
thread. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, just like wanting to be accepted or, wanting to be liked, and but then it's like when you care about like what people think about you, it's almost you're doing a disservice to yourself. And it's like that what I found is the inverse of that. It's like when I'm just trying to be authentically myself, that's when I generate more interest in the music, because I'm free in a way. And like people feel that they feel that presence on stage. They fear that
Yeah.
like, I'm just gonna do my thing and be myself.
Yeah. And so let's just let's follow it really simply. Like what if you're not accepted? Like just keep asking the question. What if
Yeah.
what if you're not accepted? What's the next thing?
Like what would I feel? Or fear, right? You know what I mean? Like it
Yeah,
was
like
like, yeah,
what's
we go back.
like I want to get back to the root of the fear. Yeah.
Yeah, afraid, yeah, not good enough or whatever, like, this self, imposter syndrome, whatever you wanna call it, but that a lot of that too, just, like, to stack that confidence goes back to putting in the work for me now, right? But, you know
Yep.
yeah,
But if we want to get at the root of what that fear, where that fear came from, as you mentioned, all of this stuff, we experience in childhood. So at some point, there's like that fear of a lack of acceptance comes up because we have been conditionally loved at some point, right?
totally.
Yeah. So we have an experience where we get some praise for a certain type of behavior, and we experience some rejection or just lack of acceptance or punishment for another type of behavior. And so we learn to create that split within ourselves at an early age, and we can trace back all of the stuff that we've got going on in present day, adulthood. We can trace it all back to something that has started in childhood, and that's where those fears come from. And that's where, if we really want to dig into them, we always end up going back there, which is cool.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
It's
Yeah, no, again, not my parents, no, they did their best, like a lot of folks, folks' parents. It's like you do the best with what you got, and it's like so. Yeah, there's no animosity, there's no nothing. But I don't think. Yeah, I think I was afraid to be myself, and in some ways, like I was like fearless because I just didn't know any better. Like as a child, like you're kind of oblivious to the world. It's like only when I put myself back into it was I like did those things like kind of manifest outwardly, right? Because you're older and like you're in the
Mhm.
world and you're putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, you're exposing yourself to different things. And which I think is great, it's like we say, growth happens when you're, in these uncomfortable places. But yeah, of course,
Yeah.
of course it stems back to, not feeling yeah, safe to be myself. And so like what comes out of that is like a fear, right? And um yeah, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Working on it.
Yeah, and it's important to recognize, like you said, not blaming the parents, right? Because that's easy to play that game, and that's where a lot of therapy stops, right? A lot of trauma therapy, when we focus only on what happened. While it's extremely important to focus on that, we can go beyond it and get out of that victim narrative to really dispel all of the fear. Because when we recognize that it wasn't personal, that our parents were raised in fear, that we live in a fear paradigm, we recognize that really this is all just a part of our own creation, a part of our own karma, and coming to accept it and look directly at it and really process that fear is how we move through it. And it's extremely important to not pretend it's not there. And for the conversation specifically, well, with everyone, but I know, we discuss the men's work point of view a lot here. We have been conditioned to not acknowledge fear. We've been conditioned to not acknowledge sadness. So when we don't acknowledge those fears, to use fear as the specific example, if we don't acknowledge it, then it's not gonna be processed. It's not gonna be released. So working with the fear means looking right at it, like releasing fear, getting out of fear and moving into love. We can't just do that, spiritual bypass, that love and light, just go, I'm just gonna ignore it all because it's all love. I've seen it, I know that it's all love, so I'm good. Like, that's essentially what I did when when I was starting this path and I went down, into some deep, plant medicine journeys that showed me a lot, and then I was like, "Yeah, I just basically thought that I could could skip over a whole bunch of the trauma work," and that ended up manifesting in many different ways, coming out and life showing me that you can't skip over that. So yeah, it's an interesting conversation to open up with really anyone on this planet. What are your fears? How are you dealing with them? Most people aren't. Most people are turning to addictions, any sort of distraction. But when we take the time to really look inside, it's like that's the only way you're going to be able to move through it is by going directly into the fear, looking at it and accepting it, because as we said, that child part is in there that wants to come back, that wants to come back into wholeness, that wants to come back home. But there's a fear, there's a belief in something being out of alignment that is keeping that separate, and that's why we have to look at it in order and release the belief in order to bring that aspect of our psyche back in so we can move through this world more lovingly.
Yeah. It's interesting you said that, you see people even trying to do the work. It's like, yeah, yeah, I've seen that too. It's like you kind of just skip over the dark part, the darkness, right? The darkness that's in
Yeah,
all of us. It's not like it's like an evil darkness, but it's like, yeah, it's like a fear, it's like there's just like it's not completely love, right? And and so when you're, trying to just embody like, yeah, like love and light, I'm just gonna be easy breezy. It's like, yeah,
yeah,
you're masking for something that is lying underneath the surface, I think. And
totally.
I probably did that too, where it's just like, um, kept it surface level, didn't dive deeper, just like, oh, it's all good, it's all good. And then it's like, but then like it's like, why do I feel, you know, empty, I guess, or
Yeah,
or just not like knowing something is wrong, right? Like this isn't how it's supposed to be. Like this isn't how I'm supposed to feel,
yeah,
and that's where the fear was, right? Where it's just like, we talk about like authenticity. It's like, okay, so I wasn't being that for myself. I wasn't
yeah.
being true to myself, right? And honest. And yeah, man, really interesting. It's like when I really start to peel back those layers, it's like, yeah, w- why though? You know, why was I afraid of I recognize now it's like, why do I even care what other people think?
Mhm.
Because a lot of people don't love themselves, right? Or like aren't even, most people are fine, but it's like, why was I afraid of judgment when so many people aren't even like trying to like do the work themselves or like trying to do good, or it's just like, or maybe just going through the motions, and it's like, you know, e or like, when I was going for like, in my younger 20s, like job interviews, or, any big moment where like in my mind I was putting someone on a pedestal,
Yeah,
maybe it's because they made money or whatever. It's just like, but like it's, now at this age, it's like I don't care if someone's rich or like if someone makes money or, whatever. It's just like, why am I putting people on a pedestal or like afraid of this person? It's like, because they like when you really talk to them, it's like, oh, like you're not all that, right? You know what I mean? It's like you're not even, I don't know, like impressive. Like I met some impressive people in my life, but it's like, what are they more advanced upon? It's like, that internal growth. It's like, oh wow, like they're really content, they're really at ease, they're really comfortable in their own skin, and that's way more impressive to me now than, like the superficial stuff, or the stuff that maybe I found intimidating or was afraid of when I was like younger. And like it's, you talk to those people too, it's like they make others uncomfortable, I feel like, just because of they embody that authenticity. Like the people
mm,
that are like, like again, we talk about like when people are triggered or they feel some type of way when they come across someone with such a strong energy in
yeah,
themselves. And And that can be uncomfortable for some people, but those are the folks that I truly find impressive now. It's like because and again, why? It's like because 'cause they're not I mean, not that anyone isn't, afraid at any moment, but it's like it seems like most of the time it's like they're truly being that love and, kind of shedding the fear along the way.
Yeah, and I think those people have sort of polished themselves to that point where they are a greater mirror to reflect back others. Um, so when somebody who's not dealing with their fear encounters a person like that, they just see themselves reflected back. It's kind of like when we discussed alcohol. Like if you have quit drinking and you're in a situation where there's a lot of people drinking and someone's offering you a drink and you say no a few times until they're like, "What's the deal? Like, what, you don't drink?" And it's like, "Yeah, actually, I don't drink alcohol." And in that, as we've discussed, many people will automatically come back with like a defensive statement, like, "Well, I don't drink that much," and and it's like, "Well, I didn't ask you. Wasn't judging you or anything," but immediately they recognize that something that they are not actually happy about is being mirrored back to them, and it's attached to a root of some sort of fearful experience in their past, some sort of fearful belief, programming, whatever that is causing the addictive behavior, choosing to put poison in in your mouth. So that's an example. It's like when someone is anchored in stillness, when someone is centered and they're encountering people that are not, it will they yeah, essentially they've polished themselves to the point that they've become a mirror. And that's not like a hierarchy thing or a better than or worse than. It's just polishing in terms of the awareness of on the journey of that soul, right? Um, and when we're talking about fear and why don't we look at the fear? It's like, well, we fear the fear, and it's all an illusion because like it says in Conversations with God, fear is just false energy appearing real because it's everything's, as far as see it, in my opinion, is like comes down to separation, right? The concept of like separation consciousness, which is illusion. That's what drives the whole fear paradigm in my opinion. Because if we understand ourselves as one, then there's no reason to ever put someone else above you or below you, right? Like you say, you put someone on a pedestal that they've only got one way to go, and that's to fall off of it. And no hierarchy really works in any sort of more evolved way of thinking. So yeah, when we come back to why don't we look at the fear, it's there's a fear of looking at the fear because it's like it's the deepest stuff. And that's why we end up bypassing. That's what I did. Thought I could skip past it because looking at ourselves and seeing the darkest aspects of our shadow, we recognize that we have all of it within us. Because again, bringing it back to the concept of oneness, if we're all one, then we have the best of the best within us and the worst of the worst, if we're going to use that dualistic language. But it's understanding that we've all got it all within us because we are infinitely um we have infinite potential, right? With the creative capacity of our minds, if we look at it that way. We are creators. We can create whatever we want. And so, just look at human history, right? The 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 German army in World War II, like, they weren't different than anyone else, right? Those are people just like us. It wasn't like, oh, the Axis and the Allies, they're different, right? That's not true. If anyone were born in under different circumstances, they'd be doing the same thing that those people are doing, right? So when we understand that we all have that potential in us, it it goes a long way to starting to unravel that knot that's in there that can create those blockages. But we have to understand that it's all of us. So yeah, man, fear. It's the fear has to be overcome. It's like it's looking at it directly until it dissolves of itself, and we recognize that it's not even it never was real because it's all based on illusion, right? It's if we go back even to our childhood stuff, why did what happened impact me so much? Well, I'm not blaming myself. I'm not like victim blaming in this situation, saying that like, uh, well, it was my fault because I took it personally, the way that my parents treated me. But at the end of the day, I did take it personally because I was a little kid and that was all I knew.
Yeah.
And when I took it personally, I took in those beliefs and I created a story around it, and that affected the way I saw the world, and that made me manifest things into my life that were unpleasant. And while it's, I'm not going to say that was a bad thing that I took it personally or it was wrong. I still have to be the one to look at it now and understand that no one else is going to do that work for me. I have to realize like, well, I took something personally, and really it wasn't personal. Like the way my parents treated me was based on the way they were treated, and their unconscious and addictive behaviors were hurting me, and like they didn't know any better. I'm not mad, like it's again, because like anger is just covering sadness and fear as well, right? So when we look at that, it all dissolves of itself, like, and that's the thing. Looking at the fear, and we have this fear of looking at it because we're scared of what we're going to see in our shadow. But like, it's if we look directly at it, like unflinchingly and with love, it will all dissolve, and we see it was never real. And I know we have a lot of attachment to our stories, and oh, this happened in my life because I was abused as a child. This happened in my life because, I lost a parent when I was a child. It doesn't matter what it was because we've all got the stories. Like, we just have to lose the attachment, work on releasing the attachment to the story, because it's when we do that that we can start to see like, yeah, okay, I took it personally. I broke one of the four agreements. I took it personally, and that created these beliefs. And once I recognized then that I was the creator of my life from that point forward, and I can't just blame it on a trauma narrative, uh, then I find freedom because I realize like no one else is going to do the work for me, right? We talk so much about trauma, and it's such a big topic, but we have to be able to move past it and recognize that ultimately everything's karmic and is a result of past choices, actions, consequences, resulting in our current circumstances. And again, as we've said a bunch of times, no one else is going to do the work for you. So looking at that fear is yeah, it has to be done unless we want to keep going on that hamster wheel, having the same experience.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, man, how how does that how does that land?
No, it resonates. It resonates. And, you know, when it comes to like societal pictures, eh, again, macro, micro, right? It's like, what is the mechanism of control for large swaths of human populations?
Yeah,
Fear, right? It's always been fear. Fear
yeah,
of consequence, fear of pain or death, or not that those aren't um scary, right? Like those are scary things. Um, but when people absolve themselves of the fear, it's almost like you take the power away from the people that are trying to implement the fear, right?
exactly.
Yeah,
And they're scary things, but only when we don't know them. Death is scary only when we're not familiar with ourselves, only when we don't see ourselves. And it's just like when you get to know it, when you get to know yourself inside and out, then the fear dissolves. It was like the examples you brought up of East Germany, and the people get to the point of knowing the system so much, and they're like, you know what? I'd rather staying in this system because I know it so much so well. It's been so brutal so long. that becomes more the thought of staying in that becomes more scary than the unknown of saying like, "Fuck it, like, let's just all drop this." So just because it's at an energetic point at that point. It's just it reaches this climax where everybody's like, "Fuck, no, absolutely not." And that
Yeah,
fear, it's the fear has been dissolved of because like you've been throwing the worst you've got at us for this long. We know it. It has to be over now. This staying in this is insane. So let's move on to the next thing. And it's just it dissolves of it that quickly. And so it's the same thing when we know ourselves inside and out, we can move through life much more gracefully because those things aren't they don't have the same weight, right? It's like, oh, like fear of losing one's job, fear of losing one's reputation. Once you realize that you are not those things, you don't identify so strongly with them. The sting is gone. Like that fear, the attachment is gone, and therefore it doesn't have any power over you, and therefore it doesn't create that blind spot, and you can move through life much more gracefully because it's like, yeah, you're gonna be fine no matter what. So like it always comes down to, I mean, it can if we wanna look closely enough. It's always gonna come back to, like, an energetic, spiritual conversation, as far as I can see, with any of these things because, like you said, with the mechanism of control is fear, and, I think we talked about before, when we're in fear, we get tunnel vision, right? Like, we shut down. We only see 1 or 2 options, and if we can train ourselves to not be pulled in that way, then you see more options. The fear tactics don't work. It's like, "Oh, you're gonna lose your job. Okay, well, I'll be fine though." Like, "Or you're gonna die. Okay, well, death isn't real. I can't die." The idea of who I am that I've been holding on to since that my society has programmed with me, that will die. This physical body will be shed, but like that which I am will never die. So it really turns down the volume on the whole thing. And we can apply
yeah,
it everywhere.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then people might, I don't know. I would, when it comes to, because I think death is really interesting because that is a motivator for me, right? Where it's like, yes, I acknowledge your point, that my soul, my spirit, like that's gonna go on, and I can
Mhm.
mourn this physical body, this life that I built in this body. It's like I really like this Steven, you know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
really like this, this guy that's not gonna exist, right, forever.
Yeah.
But like enjoying the moments that I have with him, me, now, right?
Yeah.
And trying to make the most of this life now. It's like I don't fear death necessarily, but I do use it as like I got some stuff I want to do in this body,
Yeah.
in this time. And not that I'm like, as a fear-based thing, but it's just like recognizing that nothing's promised. Tomorrow isn't promised. Something could happen to me tomorrow, and that would be okay in the grand scheme of things, by and large. Um, and so yeah, man, death especially is, yeah. I mean, you see it now with like, the oligarchs or the tech oligarchs. It's like, everyone's like, they're terrified of death, I think, in a lot of ways, trying to looking into all the longevity stuff. And there's that, oh my God, I forget his name, but like that famous doctor. And he has like all of his clients are like billionaires who like, they want to, extend their life and live forever. And, um,
Yeah.
you know, it's like they're terrified of it because of, the things that they've gained or accumulated over their lifetime and, losing that. And, they don't want to, right? Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, man, I just think it's for me, it's a motivator and just to make the most of things now, not be afraid of what's to come after.
Yeah, that's a great thing because you can turn it from a fear thing into a love thing. Like I want to do my best to express myself and bring as much peace
Love.
and joy and love and calm into the lives of others around me while I'm in this vessel. And that's the whole point. And the fact that there are that many people who are so concerned over death, I've seen things like that over the years, like people who are just massively invested in all of the possible life hacks they can do, and all the health hacks and all this stuff, and it's like that that should really just give us reason to pause and take stock of, like, account of the situation, and just see, like, how profoundly sick our society is, how incredibly primitive we still are in our awareness. That some of our most accomplished people, if we're looking at it from the metric that we normally do, which is in our world, which is money, it's like that they're still that confused, that they're trying to hold on to this physical life as long as possible in a universe that is billions of years old. Just again, looking from that perspective, uh, as that's most familiar to that type, and trying to hold on to this, and or trying to upload their consciousness to the cloud, or whatever they're
Yeah,
trying to
yeah,
do.
that one's
It's like
crazy. Yeah.
it's like, guys, don't worry, it's already taken care of. You don't have to control this. This is the nature of our existence. We don't die. But it's like it's I'm not laughing at it, but it's just so insane. It's kind of hard not to kind of blow off some of that energy, man. It's just crazy. Like that's not real. And the fact, yeah, again, I'm just repeating myself here, but the fact that we're still so focused on that as an entire planet, essentially, you know, for the most part, everybody's locked into that kind of thinking. It is really indicative of the fact that we are a society very primitive in our thinking, and we have so far to go, which is should be an exciting thing. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, recognizing that death should be your friend. Like, the concept of death should be something we meditate on all the time, because death brings us into the present moment. When we really sit and meditate on death, that brings us into the present moment, and that can being in the present moment is where you're going to find yourself, you're going to find your creativity, and you're going to find the 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 ways in which you can m- create a life well lived, something that you can look back on and be like, yeah, you know, I had a good ride with that story, with that identity, with that body, you know, that ego identity. I had a good ride with that. And you know what? But even that, like, you don't have to create a fear of not having a life well lived, because again, we have infinite times to try this over and over again. Like, it's not a big deal, and that's not like a call to apathy. It's just to turn down the volume on the fear, because it's when you realize that it's not a big deal and it's all good either way, and you know this is an infinite game we're playing, and death isn't real. That actually will create the space for you to be more creative when that like, a lot of people think that fear is like the motivator, and yeah, of course, you know, it's been kind of going that way up until the last few years, that as we're starting to shift. But you know, think of like the baby boomer generation that we often often refer to. It's just very relevant because it's our parents. You know, using fear to motivate everything they did, right? Like, well, you got to make money because you got to put food on the table. I had a friend, just a little anecdote. I had a friend whose father was like insanely wealthy, like close to $1 billion. And this guy would still talk about needing to work hard to put food on the table. And it's like, buddy, you got like almost $1 billion. Like, what, but, and it's so irrational that it's like, it's just so completely it completely points to the fact that it's like it's an irrational part of ego. It's a traumatized aspect of ego that is running the show from the shadows. It's unprocessed shadow that has been motivating this person's life, stepping on people's necks to get ahead. As pretty much has to be the case. You have to be exploiting people to have that kind of money.
Absolutely.
Exploiting people or something, some part of our world, natural resources. But anyway, it's recognizing that all of the fear is not real. Like, that false energy appearing real, that's not just like a cute new age thing to say. Like, that is fucking real. That is real, that it's not real. false
Yeah.
energy appearing real, that's fear. It's illusion. There's nothing to fear, but yet we've moved into this world of duality and for this experience, and because we've forgotten and we've gone so deep into forgetting, it has become like the motivating, or it has become the underpinning element of our experience here, which is yeah, I mean, it's essentially what the Buddha's Four Noble Truths are based on: suffering. And suffering is like, and things being other than the way we think they should be. And so basically there's a fear that we're not going to get enough, fear we're not going to be taken care of, all of these things, fear of death. So, but it's all illusion. So it always comes down to applying the most simple spiritual concepts, which are the most profound, applying them to the great, and to the minor, the micro, the macro. Um, there's nothing it doesn't apply to. But and at the same time, like the conversation on fear is very nuanced. Like, it's very simple, but it's also very complex and nuanced. So it's always a good one to have. It's always, and every individual experience, every journey through it is so relevant and so welcome to be uh, discussed. And like we were talking about a few different things before hopping on, but like how, I mean, I can share a little bit my fears that I've experienced in my life, but I'll put it back to you because I've been talking for a minute here. Like what are some of the other ways fear has manifested in your life for you, Stephen? Or any other
Yeah,
points you want to add?
for sure. Regret, right? I just
Yeah.
at this point, which again, it's like, is that healthy? I don't know. Probably still working on it. Where it's just like now, it's just I don't want to live a life of regret. I don't want to. I refuse to subscribe to the notion again, like the boomer mentality. It's like work hard and you can retire when you're 65 and live a great retirement in Florida. And it's just like fuck that. Like
Yeah.
I want to live a life now. And it's like yes, I understand. Again, we talk about the money game, and it's like yep, I know I have to play the money game to exist, right? You know what I mean? To operate in the systems that are built. But it's like I can also live a life. It's balance, right? It's a balance, and I'm really lucky that the kind of the world that I've built in my life now, it's like I have a lot of flexibility within that balance. You know what I mean? And I can um yeah, like do the things, but it's just like now it's just like the fear that is driving me is like leave it all on the floor, right? Like leave it all on the table, and
Yeah.
really just live a life that um yeah, that I can, regardless of when my time is up. It's like, well, it's like I was doing the damn thing while I had the time,
Yeah.
and again, yeah, trying to spread that love. Like, the music that I'm putting out there is, especially now that the stuff I'm writing is like really, is really rooted in love, is what I'm trying to do, like love and joy. And
Cool.
yeah, man. And so it's just like really trying to spread that far and wide. Um,
Yeah.
so it's, yeah, man, it's just like now it's just like regret because I think I did not waste time. It's like, again, none of my experiences were a waste, but it's like, I don't think I made the best use of my time in the past. I was playing the game still, right? Like going to college and like working jobs to pay off that college. And it's just like, um, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that anymore, you know?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, man. So it's just like, yeah, yeah. Not the fear now is regret.
Yeah. But so look at regret, right? And if you're looking at it, if there's a fear of having more regret, or you're focusing on the regret that you already have, like fear of more regret being like not leaving it all out on the floor, right? That fear itself is taking you out of the present moment and bringing you to a place where you're more likely to have regret in the future. Again, like where your attention goes, the energy flows. So if you're focusing on regret, you're going to be manifesting more regret, because
Yeah,
that, like, it's right there. If you're regretting something, okay, so that you're in the past, right? You're not in the present moment. You're
yeah,
in the past. So then you're not in the present moment, which is the only moment that is ever happening. It's the eternal
Yeah,
moment of now because nothing's ever not happened now. It's always happened now. And if you're not there, then you're in the past, you're somewhere else, which it means then you're just creating it again. And so that's why we have to look at what that fear is. What is the fear of regret? Like you have to go like looking direct, I mean, a suggestion, looking directly at that fear of regret. Like what does it mean? Because if you look directly at whatever that fear is, and you know, you can sit in meditation, you can mirror it back in conversation, like a little bit of what we're doing here now. If you can look directly at it for long enough with you know, unflinchingly, no matter how scary it is, you look directly at that fear, you see that it starts to fall apart. It starts to dissolve because it's like, what is that? You learned about that from other people, most likely, because you know, we grew up seeing that, you know, hearing family members complain or whatever, like, "Oh, I missed my shot," or I should have married that woman," or "I should have taken that job. I should have moved across the country back when I had that opportunity." You know, we hear that kind of stuff. We see it in movies and TV. That kind of stuff seeps into our subconscious, and we think like that's what adults do. And you know, we get to that place where we start mirroring what has been fed to us and programmed into our subconscious this whole time, and then we start creating it for ourselves. So if we look at those things, if we look directly at it, you know, you can see that it's not yours. That idea,
yeah,
what was it when a you remember being a child? Like I have a pretty good memory. I remember being like very young, playing and like being in that like child mind. It's like there was nothing, no worries, no like what am I doing tomorrow? What did I do yesterday? Like, oh shit, I shouldn't have said that or done that yesterday. Like a kid is like totally in the moment, just like, you know, you ever like when you ever watch a kid when they like fall down and they hurt themselves, they cry it out and then they're like back up and like moving again. They're not living
yeah,
like, "Oh my god, did anybody see me fall?" and like cry like, "Oh my god, that's really embarrassing." Like, "Oh, I really regret doing that." Like they don't. It's just so again, Jesus said like be as children at the end of the kingdom of heaven, right? Like so it's like getting back to being in the present moment because that's what children are like, being in the present moment. And so yeah, man, like a fear of regret, like what is it? Like you got to look at it, you know, got to
yeah,
look at directly at it and see where it comes from. Like, and you might find the origin story, you might not, but at least feeling into it and accepting it within yourself. And something that is really helpful is like because we can kind of address these things a little bit, but then we don't really well, like, we can talk about it, like, "Yeah, I have some fear of regret," you know, we can address it when we think that's enough sometimes, but sometimes we really have to sit with it and be like, "Okay, no, I have a fear of regret," um, and sit with it, and what is it that comes up? Like, maybe it's, like, guilt or shame, and it's like, really name that, and we again, being aware of the fact that we have also been conditioned by sorry, conditioned by our society to not acknowledge bad things, right? And especially as men, again, you know, keep coming back to this point. Don't acknowledge if you're sad or scared or anxious or whatever. You know, these aren't manly traits or whatever, which is bullshit. Finding the emotions, the whatever words come up that are attached to that fear, and really like speaking them out. You know, you can speak it out to yourself, you can talk it out with someone else, but acknowledge that because that is a part of you that has been locked away, that has been programmed with something as a little kid, and then told that that was not okay. And then you kind of push that away. And that's pushing something into the shadow, right? That is what it is. And then when it's left unacknowledged, it starts to run the show subconsciously. So and it just wants to be heard, right? Like whatever that fear, that shame that exists within there, it just wants to be heard. It wants to be accepted. You need to like process it out. You'd feel it. Again, some of these catchy phrases, feel it to heal it. It's very legit. You got to feel it to heal it, and then you release it, and then that part can come back in and not feel pushed away because when we have these feelings of like regret or shame, we also have this other part in there saying like we're not supposed to feel that. So we're keeping it away and preventing it from being processed. So yeah, man, like what do you think about like sitting with that and like acknowledging the regret? Like what do you how does that land?
yeah. Like you said, you mentioned like shame and guilt, and there's probably a lot of that wrapped up in there. you know, and, yeah, kind of that, like, kind of poke fun at, like, the Irish Catholic upbringing where, it's like God is love, but be so afraid,
Yep.
and so there's a lot of guilt and shame.
Yep.
And even
Big
as a
time.
child, I was like, this doesn't feel right, like you kind of
Yep.
feel the hypocrisy in the moment, even as a child.
But
But yeah,
it's safe to fit in. But you go
safer
along
to
with it because everybody else is, and you're like, "Well, fuck, this doesn't make any sense," but, like, the people that are taking care of me and keeping me alive are doing this, so I gotta fucking go along with it. That's like the kid, like, and then you have a split in yourself 'cause you've been inauthentic to yourself. But that's what we've been conditioned to be completely identified with our bodies and our egos, and especially as children, it's like, "Oh, I'm not just gonna fuck off into the streets and die. I need to stay home. My parents are feeding me, and this is what they do, so I adopt their program." This is how human this is intergenerational trauma. It's just everything. This is culture. This is everything, which is all nonsense, which is all Maya, is all illusion. But it's these things we have to come through to come to awareness, to recognize that this is none of this is real. Culture, upbringing, religion, like it's none of it's fucking real. It was all it was all creating these splits because like that happened. Like when I hear you say that in that moment, you're like you recognize it's kind of bullshit and hypocritical, but you're like, oh fuck, but like I gotta go along with it, like um.
yeah,
But I'm sorry, I totally interjected there, but I want to hear more. Tell it like
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
No, no, dude, no, I really appreciate your perspective. But yeah, man, yeah, it's just um, because what did that do? That pushed me away from that, right? Where it's like, but I think there's so much merit in a lot of like the fundamental teach. I mean, there's in like the fundamental teachings of like that stuff, and it's like they're not living it, they're not embodying it as an
yeah,
organization. Catholic organization is one of the richest organizations in the world, and there's billions in
yeah,
poverty, and it's like, what are they doing to really, to help? It's like,
yeah,
just collecting money from the poor.
exactly.
So it's just like, you know, so that pushed me away from it, from organized religion, from spirituality for a long time,
Yeah,
like, from like my teens to like probably like my later 20s, right?
and
That's a
it's
decade
designed to do
of,
that.
yeah,
Yeah,
dude, that's a decade of spiritual bankruptcy, and probably when I could have used it the most, when it was like formative younger years, when
yep.
maybe that again, can't, regret. What is regret? We can't, who cares,
But
right?
yeah,
It's like we're go for it.
exactly. Can I just throw this in there because you're talking about the regret again? What if what if you were not supposed to be awake for those years? What if your karmic blueprint required you to be more asleep during that time so you would have had all of those experiences that you needed to in order to go down your own unique path to find this specific path in your own way. Like what if nothing went wrong? What if there's nothing to regret because nothing went wrong? We just have an idea that something went wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I probably meant to be, right? Or was meant to be for me to be this person that I am now. And which I feel like is on the path, right? Finally.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
like I said, after 30 years, it's like I do feel like I am more myself than, like we talked about aging in a prior episode. It's like I'm looking forward to it because I just feel like I'm more and more myself as time passes, and just really just discovering myself or rediscovering myself, right? That balance with like the childlike version of me and like what brought that version of me joy, and balancing
Yeah.
that with the adult, right? And the skills and knowledge that adulthood brings, and building something cool, right? Building something cool in adulthood, and yeah, doing cool stuff with that childlike wonder and that childlike exploration and curiosity and all that stuff. And
That's
again,
it, man.
yeah, rooted more in love, not in fear, brother.
Yeah, becoming a whole being again, because that's the thing. All of those things where we were trained, conditioned, forced to go against ourselves, it created all these splits, right? These are these like mini and large traumas too. Like uh, experiencing organized religion, something that all of them started with, a root mystical, sorry, mystical tradition that is supposed to be a blueprint for getting in touch with your soul, for getting in touch with God. To be able to feel that, to be able to feel the truth of that in your heart, and then also at the same time to be able to see the hypocrisy and the distortion, like, all in the same place, is a trauma as well. That is a deeply disturbing experience for a young and developing consciousness to see that, and it drives us away, and it creates that fear. And yeah, man, it's something that we all got to look at. And it doesn't have to be the scary thing. It can be such an absolutely joyful thing when we realize that, like, all of this distortion and trauma is actually not real. We can go beyond it.
Yeah. I think that's probably a good case to cap it, my friend,
Yeah.
for this episode on fear. Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, man, just keep looking. Always keep looking, right? We can never stop, and, like, if we feel like we're hitting a plateau, then that's a reason to keep pushing. It's There are so many points where it feels like we kind of get to a place of stability, and that's great. But when we stop looking, when we've built that momentum, and we start to kind of take the foot off the gas pedal, life will bring it in for you. So it's not that we have to control it or anything, but just remain open, and pushing, like, focusing the awareness in a direction of always in a direction of growth, and looking to alleviate our own fear, and then that automatically spills over into being able to help others, which, does not come from a place from the mind, like, trying to control that, and create those situations. It just takes care of itself. So yeah, it's always just an inward looking, and that's where I would leave it.
Cool, man. Folks, if anything you heard if you liked what you heard or resonated with anything that we've said, please like, comment, subscribe, follow with us, engage with us. If you want to hear us talk about something, would love to hear you come on this like little journey of oneness with us and just trying to get back in shape.
Gotta get back in shape.
All right, y'all. We'll catch you next time.